Hello, assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Nadeem. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Nadeem.
Good. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Thank you so much for doing this. We are really anxious to hear you.
Jazakallah khair. Thanks to Brother Salah al-Bakri, Sheikh Adnan al-Bakri, Yumna Ali, their entire team, Mahmoud as well for getting us up and running.
Absolutely. Salah Bakri is our leader here in the Bay Area. He's undisputed leader. Undisputed leader.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, Akh Sam.
How are you, Sam?
Very well, thanks. How are you, Tahanie?
Good, alhamdulillah. It's good to talk to you again.
Alhamdulillah, good to talk to you as well. Looking forward to hearing you.
Thank you.
We're going to start shortly. I'm just waiting for more participants to be able to sign in. I keep on receiving messages that says that we're trying to log in. So if you allow me, I'll just allow more time here, a minute or two.
Assalamu alaikum, Bassem. Before you start, can you hear me?
Bassem, go ahead, Bassem.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, mashallah, the Aboushi clan in Sacramento is excited that Tahanie is running, and some of them will be joining today.
Thank you, yes.
Bassem Al-Qarra is president of CARE, and he's also on the board of the educational board of Sacramento, so he's a very well connected guy. Thank you for galvanizing the troops, Bassem.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. Thank you for making this happen.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Can you hear me well, Salah?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
And we're live here, so we're just waiting on a couple of more people to allow people to get in.
By the way, my name is Alauddin, Zay Salah al-Din.
No relation?
Yeah. Because you said Adnan, my name is Alauddin, and my brother is Salah al-Din. Ana Sheikh Alauddin, and he is Sheikh Salah al-Din.
Okay, I think I'm gonna get started, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, everybody, for attending. May Allah bless you. Thank you, Tahanie, for doing this. Let me just do a couple of words of introduction for Tahanie. Tahanie Aboushi is one of New York's most outspoken and highly regarded progressive attorneys. Tahanie is running to end the history of discriminatory policy and to transform our justice system from one that targets historically marginalized communities into one that uplifts and builds up our neighbors and neighborhoods. She has been fearlessly demanding fair treatment for people of all backgrounds and came to national prominence during the Muslim ban and helped lead the legal response to Trump's policies. Tahanie dedicated her life to defending those wronged by society and fought back against discrimination and abuse of power at every turn. She vows to decarcerate and invest in our communities, build schools instead of cages, and change the role of district attorney to center the communities harmed by the prison industrial complex. She will make the office transparent and participatory and accountable to all the public. Tahanie has recently made national headlines where she's fighting against excessive and deadly force by the NYPD. Gentlemen, my brothers, my sisters, her resume can take on a whole long time to read, so I'm just gonna scan through this. Jazakumullah khair, Sister Tahanie, the floor is yours. But before before you talk about this, I wanted to see if you can just explain to our audience from all around the United States, just a basic question. What is a district attorney do? What is this office?
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, Salah, and everyone who has joined us. I'm really excited to speak with all of you and keep the momentum going. So the Manhattan District Attorney is really the guardian of justice in our society. And most people don't know that it's actually an elected position. Now, when we talk about accountability, when we talk about equal representation before the law, the district attorney is the one that should lead with justice and truth and equality. And this is an office that really has the largest and the most permanent impact on almost every area of our lives: education, homeownership, economic stability, economic opportunities, small businesses, you name it. The criminal justice system plays a role in every single part of your life. And so it's imperative when we elect a district attorney that we elect somebody whose view of justice is guided by mercy, justice, and in pursuit of the truth, not convicting at all costs.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Sheikh Ala, I want to introduce you as well. May Allah bless you for joining us as well. I know we had a chance earlier to talk to Sister Tahanie. What's your feelings here?
Well, alhamdulillah, excited to be here with all of you. I say alhamdulillah that we have members in our community from the East Coast to the West Coast, from the North to the South, that they are ready and willing and able to run for positions and for elected positions that will be instrumental to bring about justice for everyone, with no discrimination, with no racism, with no prejudice against any minority or majority that is colorblind and status blind and wealth blind and just treats everyone equally and the same under the law. So I say alhamdulillah that we are part of all of this. I'm excited to be here and to encourage myself and you to support this beautiful cause and very, very important position. And I'm looking forward to learn, like everyone else, from Sister Tahanie about this position and what she's running for and what's her agenda and how we can help her. So inshallah, we're looking forward to this.
Sister Tahanie, I want to ask, why does it matter?
It absolutely matters because, like I was saying earlier, this is permanent imprint on your life. And so for over 10 years here in New York City, I have been on the front lines of protecting our civil rights. And we can see just by Trump even becoming president that our civil rights have mattered less and less. And we've been instead forced to accept violations on every level. And you have to step back and ask why. Why should we give up hard-fought rights? Why should we allow communities to be marginalized and take advantage of? Why should we accept Muslims being banned? Why should we accept discrimination when our ancestors have fought so hard to get us here? Now you can see what's going on in the country now. And I will tell you that if the men who murdered Ahmaud Arbery down in Georgia were held accountable instead of the district attorneys there trying to convince us that we didn't see what we saw, things would look very different. The district attorneys in George Floyd's case did the same thing, tried to downplay what the entire world saw for 8 minutes instead of doing the right thing. And even in Breonna Taylor's case, and so many other victims that are pretty much has spanned the entire US. And so when we talk about the role of the district attorney, you're talking about entrusting your future, the future of your children and your communities in the hands of one person. And not only that, when you talk about criminal justice reform on a national level, what would support that is understanding what district attorneys are doing on a local level. And so before they can push these big agendas, they're going to go and say, let's see what the district attorney's offices are doing. Are they already permitting this kind of stuff going on? Are they stopping these kind of policies? Would they support this kind of bill? And when it's already happening and progress is already happening on the local level, it makes these national progressive agendas way more easier. And so it has a huge impact on the progress we are trying to make in this country. And it's imperative that we pay attention to what's going on the local level.
MashaAllah. Sheikh Ala, what do you think of this?
I think, when you read, we are, alhamdulillah, Muslims here trying to support our sister, but it's not about her being Muslim or her being our sister. We're talking about the universal justice that our faith came to call for. There is specific details in the Islamic law that only pertain to Muslims. It is not applicable to anyone who's not a Muslim. But then there is guidelines for universal justice that all human beings agree upon, that it is true and right. It's like Allah put it in each, the creator, Allah put it in each human as censor. When you see something wrong, you know it's wrong. When you see something bad, you know it's bad. When you see evil, you know evil. When you see injustice, you know injustice. And it becomes very frustrating when you can see and live and experience injustice, but then someone on TV tells you, no, what you're seeing and living is not true. So that's why I think it's an amazing opportunity for all of us to practice our faith, but in a different way. This is not about praying 5 times a day. This is not about paying zakah or going to Hajj. This is about the universal values of Islam that every human being on this planet can agree on, that everyone from every community, from every faith can agree on. Even if Sister Tahanie today was not a Muslim sister, but she was running for the same agenda, I would support her, I would donate for her, I would campaign for her, because and I do that with local people. I support them. They don't have to be Muslims. But when we have someone from our community that wants to take that position, we also support them, because it's about the overall goal and the overall cause. And this cause and this goal, it's a human, it's Muslim, American goal everyone across the board can agree upon. Whether you're from the majority or the minority, whether you're black or white, we all can agree that justice is justice and murder is murder and hypocrisy is hypocrisy. You don't need to be a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew or an atheist to realize that. It is God created that in us, and we have to really respect that. And one of the goals of our faith is to actually stand up for justice. One of the main goals for our faith is for Muslims to stand up for justice for everyone, not only for themselves.
Yes, and thank you so much for that, Sheikh Adnan. And I want to give some context about my background, because alhamdulillah, I am Muslim, but it's not about me running as a Muslim. These issues permeate every race and every religion. For me personally, my family was personally impacted by the criminal justice system. We experienced it firsthand, how destabilizing and invasive it was. And I was 14 at the time that we had this experience, and it put a fire in my heart to, how could this injustice happen? And how could there be no accountability? And then what happens then to a family, an individual, whether they are incarcerated or processed through the system? What happens to victims? And where is the accountability for that? And so that is what inspired me to go to law school. And I didn't just want to be that lawyer that goes and makes this lot of money in some corner office on Park Avenue. I wanted to get right back into the community that raised me, communities of color, immigrant communities, first-generation American communities, communities that were struggling to make ends meet. And I wanted to be that protector. So when the system came and tried to mass criminalize our everyday life, poverty, mental health, drug addiction, domestic violence, I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't going to let it slide, and I never have. And I also wanted to take it a step further. And when people would say, listen, just that's the system, it is what it is. It's law enforcement, you can't do anything about it. It's criminal court, you can't do anything about it. I would step back and say, watch me. And I changed laws. I've changed policies with our NYPD here, our fire department, when they tried to discriminate against Black firefighters for wanting to shave their face. I did it with the NYPD when they tried to remove hijabs and other religious gear from people who were processed through the system. I've done it through the Department of Education that chose to suspend children as young as 6 years old, as opposed to providing them therapy and psychology and treating them as children. And so for me, I'm a big fan of taking down systems that oppress people. And I'm a huge fan of being challenged when I'm told that it's not possible. Why? Because this is your life. These are human beings that come before the courts and the prosecutor's office. And what happens here lasts forever. It impacts the trajectory of your future and the future of generations to come. And so when I stepped into this role of running for a Manhattan DA, it's because I see the impact that the district attorney's office has on our community. And what makes this office so powerful and different than any other office is prosecutorial discretion. So whatever the law may be and whatever our legislators want to fight about, fine. But when it comes time to the district attorney, she has the authority to decide who to charge and what to charge. And instead of using these offices as personal law firms for the powerful and the privileged, I'm going to give it back to the people and make sure that we are guardians of everyone's rights, accused and victims alike. And so this is where my passion comes from. I'm not a career politician by any means. I'm someone that's always been in the community, among the community, and I fight for the underdog. And historically, it has only ever been through the underdog that historic change has been accomplished in our country. Whether it's abolishing slavery or the Civil Rights Movement or the American with Disabilities Act, it's always taken that one person that the door was always shut in their face to slam it back open and say, we're gonna walk through, and everyone else coming after me is going to walk through as well. And that's my plan for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office.
May Allah bless you. I also want to give a chance to Sheikh Ala to speak, although I have a lot of questions coming up in my mind. I wanted to also speak about your practice, what you've been doing the last 10 years. Many people are watching us from all around the country and they don't know what you've been doing. Are you a politician? Is this something you want to work on and it's really a good position for you for a future office? What is this?
So for me, I'm not a politician. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I'm a people's civil rights lawyer. I have been a community organizer. I'm a legal advisor to plenty of community organizations here, whether it's masajid or social services organizations. I'm someone that's a part of every single meeting, whether it's with law enforcement, our mayor, our elected officials, when it comes time to issues that are permeating all our communities, not just Muslim communities or Arab communities, but things that are affecting New Yorkers. And I do my best to identify areas that I know I can litigate into progress. And just in the last few weeks, what you see here is, in New York City, we had criminal justice bills lying around for over 5 years, right? And there were things like banning chokeholds, being able to disclose law enforcement disciplinary records. And there was 1,000,001 reasons why it just couldn't be done right away. Then the people marched, and 2 weeks later, 11 of the bills passed, right? And so when you're told no, it's really out of convenience for the people who hold the power and just don't want to do anything about it. And so for me, my background has always been, like I said, identifying these areas, uplifting people who have been marginalized and oppressed by these systems and making them better. And so, and I'm a behind the scenes person. This has been what I've been doing for over 10 years. I've dedicated my life to this. I really believe in the power of the people and really protecting not only our rights, but the future of how this country is moving. And so when I jumped into this race, the reason why I jumped into it is because I saw this, and I do see this as an opportunity for groundbreaking reform. No more thoughts and prayers. No more let's do it later. You have prosecutorial discretion. You have a district attorney whose view of justice includes everyone and is giving power back to the people and is going to make sure that everyone is equally before the law. And that's so important. I mean, I really can't underestimate the moment in time that we are in, from the political moment to the frustrations of our people, and then the opportunity to make real change without excuses. That's why I jumped into this race. It's not an easy undertaking. It's literally the only thing that I'm doing now pretty much 24/7. And a piece of me is very natural because this is what I've always been doing, going between different communities, learning about what needs to be done, and then working every day to make that happen. But instead of doing it on a small scale, case by case, we now have an opportunity to make not only groundbreaking reform here in New York, but because this is one of the most powerful district attorney's office in the country, what we do here will have reverberating impact across the entire nation and will support all criminal justice platforms from your city council district all the way up to your Congress, and even impact any presidential executive orders that would come out of the White House.
Jazakallah khair. Sister, I want to give a chance to a friend of mine here and a friend of yours. Sister Linda just placed a donation and is encouraging others to donate. So I think, Sister Linda, you kind of met this lady, right, that we're interviewing today. Sister Linda?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Yeah, I just arrived from the airport. This is actually my mask, and it says Breonna Taylor's name on it. And I heard Tahanie talking about Breonna Taylor. I just want folks to know that I met Tahanie almost 30 years ago. Tahanie was a little young one when I met her. And so I grew up with her in New York City. She's someone that I didn't just meet in the community. She's someone that I know, and I know her family, and I know her siblings, and I know her mother and father. And I will just say this, I am putting 1000% of myself with Tahanie. She has a pathway to victory. This is not just about, is Tahanie good? Is Tahanie qualified? This is, can Tahanie win? And Tahanie can absolutely win. As many of you know, I work in politics in New York. I've seen the numbers. I know what it looks like to have a candidate that has a pathway to victory, but she has to have the resources to win. And I'm telling you all that we just ran a young Muslim brother in our community here in New York City named Zahran Mamdani. And a lot of people didn't believe in it. They laughed us off. Some people in the Muslim community ridiculed us and said, this young man here, do you really think he could win against an incumbent? And we ran Zahran. And Zahran actually, inshallah, will know the final results of the absentee ballots within the next week or so. But on election day, this young organizer, activist in our community named Zahran won. And he won because he had a pathway to victory, and because he organized, and because he believed. And Tahanie has a vision. She has an agenda. She has a track record. She is very well known amongst the movement here in the New York City area. She is eloquent. She is articulate. She has every degree and qualification for this job. In fact, she is, in my opinion, more qualified than anyone who's running in this race right now. And right now, she is the only woman of color who's running for district attorney. So I'm hoping that folks understand how serious this is. You know, when I talk about Breonna Taylor is a Black woman in Kentucky. I just came from Kentucky. Breonna Taylor is a Black essential worker, an ambulance worker who was shot by Louisville the Metro Police Department, sleeping in her house. She was sleeping. And the police officers who murdered her have still not been arrested. If they had a district attorney, a county attorney who wanted to follow the law and who wanted to bring justice to communities, those officers would have already been indicted. And that's why we need someone like Tahanie, who's not afraid of the New York Police Department, who's not afraid to stand up against the status quo. And I'm proud to say that, yes, it's true, Tahanie, that you are not running because you are a Muslim. You are not running because you are a Palestinian. But those parts of you are very important, that we have this kind of quality that's coming out of our community. And inshallah, with the support of folks on this call and many other fundraisers, you will become the first woman Manhattan District Attorney. And it will be because our community loved you and embraced you and supported you throughout this process. And remember, folks, her race is next year. Her filing is coming up. She has to show that she raised a significant amount of money, because the opposition will base her pathway to victory on how much money she has. And alhamdulillah, Tahani's done very well, but we want to shock the establishment. So inshallah, today you can all join me by matching my donation of $1,000 to Tahani's campaign. Thank you, brother.
Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. If I may step in, I'm excited. Thank you, Sister Linda. And not only I want to encourage everyone else to donate and match Sister Linda Sansour, but I will lead with example. I will also match her, and then I will also donate $1,000. So please help me, everyone else, please. Let's not, just talk the talk. Let's walk the walk, and let's get this thing going and starting. And let's do, instead of this one event, another 100 events to put Sister Tahanie ahead. We can do it. We've seen that we can do it. We've made it to the Congress, US Congress. We need to make it to the Senate. We need to make it to district attorney, governors, in every position. That's the only language others understand. So please help me. Let's get excited. We want to talk, but this is not an informative session only. This is a transformative session. We want transformation. We already have a lot of information about injustice. Let's do some transformation. Let's turn around and be the hands of good and the force of good that God created us for, inshallah. This is our struggle. We're happy to have it. Allah didn't create us 1,000 years ago, nor He created us 1,000 years later. This is our time. This is our goal. This is our test. We can't run away from it. We have to face it with all the struggle and say Alhamdulillah. And truly still our job is easier than many other people in other parts of the world. So I'm excited. Please, let's show some support. There is on the Zoom chat a link. You can click on it and donate. On Apple Pay, there is a link. You can click on it and donate. Let's not, waste the time. Let's put the money and say Bismillah, So that's my point right now until, we learn some more information, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair, my dear brother and Sister Tahanie. I want to ask you this. What are we talking about here? District Attorney, what's your budget there? What can be done there? We're talking about police brutality. I've been an activist for 14 years. I fought for abolishing the 3 strikes and you're out oppressive regime that we had here in the criminal justice system that basically targeted the poor and the marginalized. You steal $15 and then you make a little mistake, and before you know it, you have a life sentence. And that's how we filled up the jails in California till there was no more place to fill. 3 times we put it on the ballots, and after 13 years of standing in the streets balloting, we passed it. So for people who really did not have their life entangled with the criminal justice system, they just don't understand. What's so scary is to go to an immigration attorney, your retainer is usually $3,500. The retainer that's going around here in California for a criminal attorney is $35,000. 9 out of 10 cases don't even see it to the courtroom. 9 out of 10 cases are finished and decided on before the gentleman, the poor boy, even makes it to the courtroom. Why? Because he had to sign a plea. Do you want 9 months or you want 5 years? Because I'm a public attorney and I don't have time. I have 50 people to defend today. And so just take the 9 months, it's good for you, not knowing that it's destroying his life and career. So with all that's at stake, I mean, I've gotten about 9 of our Muslim community kids out of juvenile courts, And I took them home, defended them. And for people who don't understand, it could happen to any of your kids. If you just get involved with the criminal justice system, it is the most oppressive system. It's never about restoring justice. It's basically about the process and in which side of the process. If you have the $35,000 retainer, you can hire a decent criminal attorney and he'll work from there. You don't have it, you get the public attorney and you're in jail. That's what's at stake here. And I think that we all need to know that. But at least for you, Tahanie, having said that, what's the budget of your office? What's the outreach of this office? Because to me, it looks like one of the most important offices in the whole state of New York, whether you're a governor or not. So I'm going to stop and let you go.
Absolutely. So the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has over $700 million budget. And so what that means we have a lot of wealth to spread. And you're right. The whole system relies on plea agreements. Here in New York, about 90% of our cases end in a plea agreement because the average person doesn't have the time or the money, and their entire life is on hold while the DA's office has all the time in the world to drag a case out. And they do that in hopes that an individual will take a plea. And so it's not based on evidence. It's not based on mercy or justice. It's based on what is the easiest way to get a conviction without going to trial. And so there's a very important division called the Early Case Assessment Bureau, where any arrests that are made come to the DA's office, and prosecutors there will now assess what charges are appropriate here. And instead of saying, let's figure out a way to find some kind of charge, the response should be, this is not appropriate here. There's insufficient evidence to charge a person. Or if the person is struggling with social inequities like homelessness or poverty, we need to refer them to community-based organizations who do this work day in and day out to give people help, not handcuff. But we're not just passing off that responsibility as their problem. No, we need to be involved in eradicating these social inequities. And that means putting our money to support these community-based organizations to work together. Because this prosecutor's office and the criminal justice system are not an isolated issue. These are, you need to evaluate this in the ecosphere of every other thing going on in our society. Education, law enforcement, economic opportunities, financial opportunities, your financial loan process. It permeates everything. And so what I'm going to do is make this office accountable and transparent and collaborative. There is no ivory tower where no one hears from the DA. There are no press conferences. There are no open meetings. No one knows what's going on. But we all know that everybody is being processed in these massive machines of incarceration and criminalization, and then there's just nothing anybody can do about it. And then once they come back out in society, it's saying, okay, well, go get your degree and go graduate school or go get a good job. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but we've taken your boots. And so not only am I going to give people their boots, but I'm also going to support them in any way I can to make sure that they are successful in our society. And we promote education and we promote rehabilitation for people and make sure that our victims have services here. Right now, victims are kicked to hotlines and websites, and that's about it. And we all know people, or whether it's domestic violence or even victims of other crimes, that they need support, financial support, therapy, counseling, childcare help, a safe place to put their head down at night. And so where is this $700 million budget going? And how can we, instead of putting it to law enforcement or databases that tag people and track them for their life, how are we then going to use it to support these community-based organizations and support everyday people who are just trying to live life and provide for their families?
Jazakallah khair. Am I silence? No.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Allah bless you. Dr. Nadeem, you had a question and I'd love you to ask us. I know you texted me that you have a question to ask, so please go ahead and ask it.
Yes, thank you, Brother Al-Salah. So Sister Tahanie, I'm really impressed. You seem to have a fire in the belly, your enthusiasm and excitement, mashallah. I'm really impressed. I had a quick question because for the last 3 years, the Office of President of the United States particularly fired 2 attorneys from Manhattan U.S. Attorney recently. In fact, this month, Jeffrey Berman was fired. And then 3 years ago, back in 2017, Preet Bharara was fired. So it seems that the president's office is really doing this incursion on this particular Manhattan U.S. District Office. So the question to you is, inshallah, should you become you get this job and elected, how would you protect and shield your office and your job from such incursion from the president's office? Thank you.
You're welcome. Jazakallah khair, brother. So one, the district attorney's office is a state office and the U.S. attorney is federal. So Trump cannot put his grimy fingers on our office and he can't do anything about the policies that we're going to instill in our district attorney's office. This is an elected position. People vote you in and they vote you right back out. And that's how this works and that's how it should stay. If there's some kind of egregious misconduct, then the governor can step in. But ultimately, it's all the power with the people here. But what the Manhattan DA office does have the chance to do in the jurisdiction is to hold the president accountable. And that's one thing that our current DA failed to do so many times. And with many of Trump's friends, they have allowed him to commit crimes of fraud, take advantage of non-for-profit organizations. They've left victims, plenty of victims in their wake here in New York City. And the DA's office did nothing about it because one of his attorneys donated to his campaign. And that's been a reoccurring theme with this DA, where he's been easy and complacent on crimes committed by those who are wealthy and privileged because they end up donating to his campaign. And so although Trump can't do anything to us here, we have an immense amount of power to hold him accountable and those of his likes who seem to be taking advantage or want to take advantage of the people of New York City. And what that will also do is set precedents and encourage other DAs across the country to stop accepting this kind of behavior. As district attorneys, we cannot abuse our power and allow ourselves to be sold to special interests. We must keep the power back in the hands of the people, and that power comes through who we vote in and who we vote out.
Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jazakumullah khair. Question here, Sister Tahanie, about your platform. You've talked a little bit. For people who have dealt with the criminal justice system, they realize that this is a revolving door. You get poor, you're poor. I've visited every jail in Northern California over, God knows, 20 times. I don't recall finding one rich kid there. And that's what really breaks your heart, that this is a system that is anything but about justice. This is a system about the process and which part. You have money, then you can get yourself out of any problem. You don't have money, then unless you really killed somebody, it's slippery slope. What do you plan to do with that office? And you spoke about this, but more into the redevelopment, rehabilitation of those people who leaves out and find no place to work, no find this. How can we redirect some of these resources from, say, any law enforcement into other things, or to work with the system? So I'll stop and I'll let you answer here.
So one of the beautiful things about this office, when we allow it to flourish, is collaboration. And so right now, our society has been trained to believe that the only way you can make things right is to destroy another person, whether it be with jail, probation, or other forms of social control. And there's no focus on the rehabilitation part. There's no focus on, is this person doing better? Almost everybody that goes through the prison system comes out worse than when they were left in, right? And even in New York, we have one of the most violent jails here, Rikers Island, which has become notorious for just the brutal assaults and violations that occur there. And we had a young man, Khalif Browder, who at the time was 16 and was arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack, okay? He lingered in jail for 3 years, just rescheduling, no one caring, because this is how the system works. He refused to take a plea. Of the 3 years, he served 2 in solitary confinement by himself in a concrete cell block. Once the DA couldn't hide that they didn't have any evidence anymore, the case was dropped and Khalif was released. He couldn't handle the outside anymore, and almost a year later, hung himself. And his mom ended up having a heart attack just a few months after from all the heartbreak. And so this is what we're talking about, right? Is what are we really doing here? What is the goal? When you talk about accountability, this is where we need to invite victims and uplift victims and their families and community members to come together and decide what is the best response here. Jail is not the right answer all the time. It might be appropriate, it might not, but it's not for us to decide. It's for the community and the families to decide. When you talk about rehabilitation, what are we expecting? Are we asking a person who has been in jail for 5 or 10 years doing nothing but following orders to all of a sudden come back out and know what needs to be done? Or someone who's suffering from a social inequity like homelessness to be jailed over and over, and then when released, has no place to live, has no way to make money, no way to pursue his education. What are we doing to support this behavior? With the $700 million, we can support initiatives that are already in play. We're not talking about recreating alternatives here. They exist. They're just ignored because they're not convenient, right? No one wants to sit here. The DAs, especially in New York City, but really across the country, have placed their value and their necessity in their conviction rates. If I show you that I'm convicting at all costs, that I'm putting people in prison, that I'm giving them records, regardless of what the evidence shows, then you're gonna think I'm doing my job. When really, they're doing a disservice to the entire country and they're damaging and destabilizing families, especially when they are the ones that control and process evidence, present them to juries, do investigations, right? So this is a very delicate position because the power is so immense, but we've seen it abused for decades. This is not something new. The current incumbent has done so much damage that people have called for his resignation. But Manhattan has had 4 DAs in the last century. This is an elected position. It's not term limited, but the average DA has served 36 years. And every single one of them have copied and pasted this convict at all costs mentality and culture. And that's how we got to a bloated system of mass incarceration, the criminalization of everyday lives and social inequities, and the silencing and the neglect of victims who want to see justice and want to know what is going to happen, but are instead kicked out of the process.
Go ahead, Sheikh. So I think, alhamdulillah, thank you very much for such an informative session. I certainly learned so many things. Again, I think, I don't know how the system works here, but if you are on Facebook, like let's say, by the way, we have a good number for an event. We have like something like almost, if you add the numbers together, 41, 22, plus 28, we're talking about almost 100 people. If each one of you does what Linda and I did, $1,000 each, we're gonna walk out with $100,000, which is an amazing news. Let's say we're not gonna do that. Let's say half of that, $500, we're gonna walk with $50,000, which is amazing. Let's say you don't do that, and each one donates $250, which I really encourage you to donate more. Then we're gonna walk with $25,000. But really, that's what I would love to see. You know, I keep on coming back to remind you and encourage you. Please don't mind that, because the whole point is to fundraise, and that's how things work. As Sister Tahanie said, those district attorneys go easy on their people, on their donors. So we don't want her to do that. It doesn't matter who donates and who doesn't donate. We want her to get in there and be fair with everyone without looking at their financial position, their power status, their color, their race, their religion. That's exactly what we're trying to get rid of. So please,
It's about time that each one start rolling up their sleeves and says, I'll give $1,000. Maybe some of you, by the way, the roof is $34,000. If you want to donate $35,000, we're sorry, we cannot accept it, but we can accept $34,000. But anything between 1,000 and 34,000, each one of us has different capacity, but this is really an exciting time. And I'm really, like, for me as a Muslim, forget, sheikh or not sheikh, imam or not imam, just as an average Muslim, they've been working on destroying our psyche for the last 20 years. Make you feel less, make you feel horrible, make you feel you're the bad guy, you're the evil guy. And we're sick and tired of it. And I'm so happy to see in the last 2-3 years, we're turning the page and we're running for every position out there, school district, city council, whatever you can get. We have a guy here, age 22, ran for a water district and won it. Amazing. Anything that will make us part of the process. As they say, we will be sitting on the table, not on the menu. So that's very, very, very important. We're sick and tired being the option on the menu, not the people on the table. So please, I don't know what we have to do. I know you here by names. So I'm going to start calling you by name and said, hey, are you going to donate $34,000 or what? But before I do that, I'm going to give you a chance, inshallah, and let it come out of the goodness of your heart and soul. I know you all believe in the cause, and inshallah, we're all brothers. We all know each other and sisters here, and we know each other and we love each other. So let's get this ball rolling and moving. And while we are listening to our sister answering the questions, let's not forget why we're here. We are in the Bay Area. People invested here pennies in stocks, and now it's worth millions. Please do not underestimate the power. Be thankful to Allah and spend for the cause of justice. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say. And I hope by the next time I talk that there will be some tally. I don't know how, I know that there's some people, the technical support in the background, they can tell us how much we raised so far. But I would really love to see a number that is 25,000 and more based on the number of attendees. Thank you. Inshallah, we can go back to the program.
Jazakum Allah khair. So I got a few texts here. So we have 1,000 from our brother. I don't know if he allowed me to put his name. So I'll forward it to you after this. I'm committing here to doubling that. That'll be 2,000 from me. So that's another 3,000 right now. I have some questions from people who are on the call. Sister Dalia, Kamal, also 500, just sending me a text. We can please just use the YouTube, what is it called? The blue Secure Act Blue, right? Secure Act Blue link that's on this, and it's also on the others. We can directly pay to Sister Tahani's campaign, inshallah. So we're starting to get them, mashallah. My question to you here is, what is our sister here, Dalia, ask, I want to know how she would prevent what happened to Khalif Browder from happening again. And I don't know if you know the story behind him, I'm quite sure, but his family couldn't bail him, so he stayed in jail, reportedly enduring beatings and solitary confinement before his case was dismissed in 2013. So go ahead.
One is to end cash bail, because the whole point of the cash bail system is really to take advantage of those who don't have the financial means to fight their case from home. And so it has been abused to force people to plead. It has been absolutely abused as a reason to violate people's rights. So I will absolutely end cash bail. The second thing is going back to the Early Case Assessment Bureau. There was no evidence that Khalif actually did anything wrong. It was simply the word of law enforcement, which is a lot of how the cases come to be in the DA's office. And so it's imperative that we start looking at other sources of evidence and information instead of just whatever it is that the officer is saying. The third thing that's very important here, there are unfortunately officers who have committed misconduct and have committed perjury or have manufactured evidence. And those officers have not yet been called out. And the DA offices have relied on those officers as witnesses in the complaint. And that is what has perpetuated a lot of these types of situations. And so it's very important that we identify these officers, produce those lists to the public, especially defense attorneys, to ensure that they can mount a proper defense, and also take them out of the process. They don't need to be in there. Law enforcement, DAs have a heightened responsibility to the truth, to justice, to do the right thing by people, not to circumvent their obligation and abuse their power. And these are simple fixes. And this is what is so mind-blowing about this office. There's not much groundbreaking things that need to happen here. We need to stop abusing the system and stop abusing people's rights. But that is what's been happening because the culture of district attorneys have been one of convicting at all costs. And it flies under the radar. So people are afraid of this power, to question this power and to question the DA. When you hear a prosecutor has done something, a law enforcement officer has done something, most people don't question it, right? We know, even go down to something as small as your traffic ticket. Anybody ever tried to fight a traffic ticket in court? You get in there and you say your piece. The officer reads the same thing off of the piece of paper that he read for the 500 people that came before you. And 90% of the time, the judge says, well, I find the officer's testimony credible, although I've heard your evidence and I find you guilty and here's your fine and suspend your license and kick you out of your home and all this other amazing atrocities happen to you, right? And you get in there and you feel helpless. Like, what are you possibly going to do to have your word seem stronger than an officer's word, right? And really what we're asking is the judge going to see me as a human being? Is the judge going to take my word and understand me as a community member, as a leader? And also think that law enforcement isn't right all the time. These are principles in our Constitution. These are principles that our courts have ruled on for years. It's just a matter of having someone in office that will honor these and protect these rights, protect people.
I just want to always tell people, I really think it should be a mandatory class for every citizen, and especially for every immigrant who comes to this country, to take a class in criminal justice and understand how easy it is to get very quickly entangled as it is. I've seen quite a lot of people who are taking either loans on their house or selling their house so they can rescue a little kid from something that they shouldn't be dealing with. And that's how scary and how powerful the district attorney's office is. And I've seen it over and over, and especially if you go to Northern California here, it becomes really, really quickly, and I'm sorry to say that, abundantly racist. And for us, if we can make a change by setting this trend, by letting all the country say, look at what New York did, look at what Manhattan did, look at what the city of New York, they've done this, they've done that. That could really be the thing that could save the future of your own child, of your own self. It's just mind-boggling how easy it is to get entangled with this. And before you know it, you're calling everybody in the neighborhood to donate $5,000 and $7,000 so you can just do a retainer. And before you know it, the criminal, you lose the case, and then you have to go to an appeal court, and then to the 5th districts, and this and that. And before you know it, all what you have accumulated in a lifetime is gone. And I don't know that people understand how easy it is to get so quickly entangled. This is my plea to the people here. Jazakumullah khair. Brother, another question for you, sister. In your day-to-day cases, which cases do you handle as an attorney, and what, repeat to the people, what kind of law do you practice?
Okay. So I'm a civil rights attorney, and in my practice, I focus on defending against racial and religious discrimination, the use of excessive force by law enforcement, and I represent children who are bullied, harassed, or sexually assaulted in schools. And through all of my cases, I aim to change policies to prevent any abuse and harm from happening to not only my clients, but to those who are exposed to it anywhere else. And you know, as a lawyer, you do other advisory positions. I advise on a lot of community-based organizations, a lot of non-for-profit organizations. I'm someone that, you know, I like to focus on the root cause of things. I'm not someone that operates on the surface. And so recently with the fire department of New York, they had thinned the ranks of African-American firefighters through a clean shave policy, although they were well aware that Black firefighters couldn't shave because of a medical condition. And so for the FDNY that has a history of racist policies, it was okay to fire 16 African-American firefighters or relegate them to administrative obligations as opposed to fighting fires. I mean, these men woke up every day for years to fight fires, to put their lives at risk for complete strangers. And the fire department said, oh, you have a skin condition? Well, I'd rather you go hold the door open for everyone else than us give you an accommodation. We fought that policy. We had a federal judge rule in our favor and decline that policy. And it allowed our clients to go back to work. With the NYPD, they were removing the hijab and other religious gear for people who were coming into contact with them, whether they're being arrested or processed for their arraignment. And everybody would say, they only took it off for a minute. It's not a big deal. And I would say, to who? These are people's religion, their beliefs. What is it to you what it means? It means something to them, and it's protected under the Constitution. But because some of these women were minorities, some of these women were immigrants and didn't speak English. So when they're being processed in the system, it's an opportunity for the system as it operates now to take complete advantage. So when I stepped in and started litigating this, me as one who wears hijab, who has religious convictions, I was able to stop and say, I'm going to show you why this is a big deal. And if you don't get it, that's not my goal here. My goal is to make sure that this stops. And we were able to accomplish that. And we changed policy within the NYPD for that. Same thing with our Department of Education. Any little thing that happened to our children, some as young as 6 years old, were being put into suspension hearings. Suspension hearings are criminal trials. The rules of evidence apply. The Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination applies. So you know what it's like to sit with a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old and tell them not to speak or say a word because it's not right, it could hurt them. To put that mentality, to put that 6-year-old, that elementary school kid, the junior high school kid in a trial environment and talk about evidence and talk about expulsion and having law enforcement presence and seeing handcuffs. Do you know what that does to a child as they now grow up and the view of life and the view of authority that will stay with them for the rest of their lives? Some of my clients are now have hit puberty and they're in college, and they came to me when they were elementary school kids and junior high school kids, and I still keep in touch with them and I check on them, and it's always in the back of their mind. Anytime a police officer walks by, when they sit in their professor's class, when they're driving, it's in the back of their mind that anything could happen, and you know what? They're free game to the system. That bothers me. That's not okay. And so when people are afraid to stand up to these systems, I think of these kids. I think of their families. What are we choosing here? To traumatize and violate and destabilize our families and our communities to keep power in play here? Who wins at the end of the day? And so this is what I've dedicated my life to. This is what we see. This is every day, guys, right? You know, in your communities, the issues I've spoken about are not foreign to us. These really are our everyday realities and everyday realities of the communities I come from. So you don't have to look far to see these abuses happening. You don't have to go far to see the struggles of our families every single day in and out of the system. These are the stories of the people who are processed in our prosecution system, not only in New York, but across the country. And so that's why I say we're not asking for anything groundbreaking. We're saying someone's got to stop it. And that's why I'm running for Manhattan DA, because I'm going to stop it. I'm doing damage control my whole life, no more damage control. We're going to stop the damage from happening. And all it takes is a little bit of guts and some money from my supporters, and we can do this. It's totally doable. It's the right time to do this. You have the people behind you. Everyone across the country is encouraged to criminal justice reform, not slap on the wrist reform, not thoughts and prayers reform, but groundbreaking historic reform to stop hurting people and start leading with justice and mercy.
God bless you. I just want to mention there's a couple of questions. Question number one, and I don't know if you, Sheikh Ala, you want to say a couple of things. I can say you can take it after him or before him. Some people are asking who's running against you. Do they have the same background as civil and human rights? And how can your background change the current culture in the DA's office?
If I may, if you allow me, Sister Tahanie, just to create a sense of urgency for everyone. Sister Tahanie's fundraising deadline to show if she's capable to run for this office or not is this coming Tuesday. So we really need everyone to do their best. Like your donation right now to get her foot through the door is more important than your donation later when she is already in and she has a broader support. So we need as much as possible now. And if you can tell us about that deadline and answer the other two questions. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with the deadline. June 30th is the end of our quarter here. And every January and June, there are public filings for all fundraising. And so what this signifies here is who is the viable candidate and who is a front runner. And I want to secure that spot. There's nothing else to it. The person who secures this spot is going to be on a trajectory to win. And it's very important that we not only keep the lead, because we have the lead. Everybody on the ground is excited about my campaign. I've gotten an amazing amount of media attention. A lot of people are, since I launched in January, I've had over 500 requests to volunteer from across the country. And so all eyes are on my campaign because I am the only candidate that has been fearless in the face of power, that has accomplished change. I'm not someone that hides by a name brand office and says, these are just my values and it would be nice if they happened. No, these are my values. These are the values of the communities I come from, and we're going to make it happen. And so I'm the only candidate that has that accomplishment. I am the only candidate that has worked between our community and our elected officials and all of the commissioners of our city agencies to create this change. Now that's important because at the end of the day, we're walking into a prosecutor's office and we are going to have to learn how to work with the powers that are in there and transform it. And so that's going to take somebody that's not afraid to have these hard conversations and is also not afraid to make the change. Again, I'm the only candidate that has already done this. So with everyone else that's running, you're going to have to guess what they are going to do and hope they're not going to be a sellout. All you have to do with me is look at my track record and you'll see that I've already done these things. So you know what I'm going to do when I'm in there. And so this June 30th deadline is so very important. I really cannot underestimate it. The race is next June, yes, but the race will be decided very early on. And anyone else that attempts to jump in, or even other candidates, are all going to be measured up against my campaign. No one comes close to my accomplishments. No one comes close to the work that I have done. But now as a candidate, it's also about the money I'm going to raise. And so it's very important that we show them that not only we have a qualified, perfect candidate, but we also have the money to show that she's going somewhere. And that's why it's important we lock this as many donors as possible by June 30th, like 11:59 June 30th.
Jazakum Allah khair, Jazakum Allah khair. Sister, I really want to see you setting a trend. Here in San Francisco, mashallah, we were able to get somebody his father is still in jail serving a life sentence to be our district attorney. And if we can do that, and if we can get this progressive guy that had no chance of winning whatsoever, I think this is very doable at your corner. I just want to give you that assurance.
I've spoken to Chesa a few times, so yes, I'm very familiar with him. We align on a lot of policies, and he was a public defender, not a prosecutor by nature, and that's not what people want. They don't want traditional, those who are essentially brainwashed with the prosecution system. They want somebody that's going to focus on protecting people's rights. And Chesa and I have had many conversations about that, and he had a historic win. But that just shows you that when you have a qualified candidate and you put that monetary support behind them, these changes are guaranteed. You don't have to worry about them, right? We just have to do our part to get ourselves in the door. And when I walk in that door, I don't walk alone. I walk with all of these communities with me, because that's what this is about.
May Allah bless you. May Allah bless you. Sheikh Ala. And I want to also give a chance to some other people. Hussam Hindi is our mayor here, Foster City. If you want to say a couple of words, please. Bassem Al-Qarra, I know before you wanted to say a couple of words. This is the time. May Allah bless you. I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Brother Salah. Bassem, you want to go? Go.
No, go ahead, brother.
Okay, thank you. Brother Salah, thank you so much for organizing this. MashaAllah, Sister Tahanie. I'm so excited about your campaign after listening to you and following your campaign. This is a campaign that really will change the future of Manhattan. And, you know, in these days when we're talking about justice, this is what folks, brothers and sisters, this is what we have. We have a fighter for justice, a fighter for human rights, a fighter for civil rights. And as we all know in these recent days, it's all about changing the system. We have systematic problem. The system needs to be overhauled. And the DA position got so much discretion as to who to hold accountable, especially the law enforcement people, right? What to prosecute, what not to prosecute. So we are very excited. And I can tell you as a candidate, as someone who runs for office, it is so critical. I mean, like I said in the chat, Tahanie is so eloquent. She had articulated her core values, and I'm sure we're all proud of those values because we hold them dearly to our lives. It's about justice, it's about equality, and it's about a system that works for all of us, not just those who are privileged. But the reality of the matter is, to get this message, Tahanie have an uphill battle. Not because she doesn't have the right things to say, because obviously we are listening to this and I am extremely impressed. But it takes money to get this message to the voters of Manhattan. To see Tahanie in office, here in California, unfortunately, we cannot vote for Tahanie, but we could definitely give her the means to be victorious and to get to that office. So I urge all of us to give and give generously, to see a change in this system. We need a fighter, and we have a fighter. So let's make sure we see that fighter in that position so we can start the change. Thank you so much, Tahanie, for everything that you are doing. I know it is a very difficult thing to be running 24/7, and probably that's what you are doing, 24/7. So she's working on our behalf, 24/7. Let's help her on what we can, and we can do that financially. So thank you. Thank you, Tahanie, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Appreciate that.
Assalamu alaikum. Brother Bassem, you wanted to say a couple of words?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Just wanted to say that with these deadlines, how important these deadlines are, June 30th deadline, when we raise money for candidates like Tahanie, we raise a lot of money for candidates like Tahanie, what'll happen is other folks that might be considering jumping in the race will stay out. So it's really important that we raise a lot of money. She'll have a war chest that will prevent other candidates from even considering running for office for this seat. So I really hope that everyone will talk to their family and friends and raise money to support her in this campaign. And so these deadlines are real, and we really need to raise as much money in the next few days.
That's right.
جزاكم الله خير. Sheikh Ala.
Yes, I keep on muting myself and taking my picture so I, don't kind of disturb the flow. But the issue here is, inshallah, we want to wrap up, and I would love to see more donations from more people, aside from the donation of Sister Linda, my donation, my brother's donation, the other 1,000 donation. I think we should easily walk out from this fundraising with $10,000 to $15,000, if not 25. But let's raise the par, and let's make sure that this donation get there before Tuesday, June 30th, so that it counts, and we can then see what other strategies we have. Right now, we don't have time. We don't have the luxury to think about it and, meditate. Now it's the time for action. Later on, we can see how we can reach out to the entire Muslim community in the US and our allies from the African-American community, from the Latino community, from the, if you start naming the communities in Manhattan, you won't stop, because there's so many. It's a sample, of the entire United States and its minorities. It's probably one of the most diverse communities in the US. So inshallah, we can do that later. Right now, we need to take care of our own before we start selling others on the same cause that will benefit them and us and everyone. So I would love to see this happening and happening tonight. And inshallah, we can, everyone, please do your best, do your best, do your best. I know it's time of Corona. I know you want to give charity to, I don't know, to which masjid or to which poor person. But believe me, when you have justice, there will not be unnecessarily hungry people, because there will be a just and fair system. It should not be left to poor people to feed other poor people. There should be a system that takes care of the poor and the oppressed and the disadvantaged. And if the system does that, then it will not be a one person or a one community burden. So inshallah, those are my 2 cents. And I hope that inshallah by the end, and we're coming, I think, to the end of this program, we will have a good amount of money, and it will make us all proud in the Bay Area. And I personally intend to call my friends and call other people to tomorrow and today, especially Saturday and Sunday, to donate to her so that we can, so I hope you do the same. You become an agent of the cause, so this way we can maximize the number of donation. Thank you. Jazakumullah khair.
A friend of mine is texting me, does she have a Venmo or PayPal or Cash App accounts to donate? So if you can answer it online here.
No, everything has to go through the Act Blue website. These are financial donations. All the other platforms that you mentioned are personal. So none of this money comes to me personally. All of it is through Act Blue, and that tracks and produces reports for our Board of Elections filings. So you'll have to do it through the link in the chat.
Brother Salah, can I make a quick comment here?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Sister Tahanie, I think we are definitely impressed by your performance this evening. Myself and one of my friend, Brother Kamal Kuraitam here in Santa Clara community, we are inshallah going to work to raise at least 10,000 over the next couple of days and donate to your campaigns. We have already posting in different groups, Indian groups, other groups, WhatsApp groups. So we are pushing this hard, inshallah. We want to see you in the office, and this is the first step. Thank you so much. We are really impressed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadeem. Jazakallah khair. I appreciate it.
May Allah bless you. With that, I'd like to wrap it up, and I want to give you the last word, Sister Tahanie. Jazakumullah khair for doing this. And for putting yourself out there. I mean, this is a very stressful position. May Allah bless you. You need to be young to handle the amount of stress that goes with such a position.
For me, this is really not stress, it's passion. I want to do this. I want to stop these violations. I want to protect people. I want us to have a just and merciful society. It's possible, it's doable. And I want people to stop being afraid to demand the truth and to demand what is right. For me, one day I will pass. I'm not here on this earth permanently. But it does take people to stand up and push back on the status quo and push back on the powers that be. And we've seen that's the only way reform happens in this country, is when we take it and when we fight this narrative that we are helpless. And so at a minimum, I really want people across this country to believe that you do have the power to make these changes, and you shouldn't be afraid, even if you're standing alone, to speak out on these injustices, to stand with your brothers and sisters who are experiencing injustices and do right by them, and demand that your elected officials, who you pay with your tax dollars, who you vote in and you can vote out, you have to make sure that they answer to you, not to special interests and not to a small group of people that insist on controlling all of society. And so for me, I'll gladly put myself on a stage to be criticized and prosecuted. I really don't care. For me, it's not about me. It's about you. It's about your families. It's about the future of your children. It's about your families and your communities seeing people who look like them actually represent their communities and actually represent this country. And it's going to take guts, and it's going to take things that we've never done before, because that is how you accomplish things you've never had before. And so everybody needs to step it up. Everybody needs to start biting off more than they can chew and chewing anyway. And what's the worst that can happen? We get justice, so let's make it happen.
Jazakumullah khair, jazakumullah khair, jazakumullah khair. Thank you for everybody who joined us. May Allah bless you. You were getting a response from someone, you are the change we need. May you be the change you need. May you be the change you need. Allah bless you for doing this, for putting yourself out there, for handling this enormous job. Inshallah, it will be yours. From what I hear from the streets, there is a lot of support from all the minorities for you. I think you have the numbers of voters on your side, since this is an elected office. While the others might have the money or will have the money, you will have the inshallah, the streets. And the street is what got Ocasio-Cortez in Congress. It's the streets who got all of our other representatives there. May Allah bless you and continue to bless you. Anybody wants to say something? I plan to wrap it up, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My name is Sister Mila, and I'm in Oakland. And I just wanted to first say to Sister Tahanie that being that you've made the intention, you've already won. And so Allah will already reward you for your intention to fight for justice. So just remember that as you go along, that, where it counts the most, you just by making that intention, you have already won. I wanted to, and when I was reading about you, I come from a family of 9 and a single mother, and for you, it's like I would just like to. I read about your father and the sentence that he got, and that he just recently was released, maybe a couple of years ago, and just sometimes we have people running for office that really don't understand what it means to be the people they're fighting for, but you are the people that you're fighting for, and your family has gone through that and the injustice of the justice system. And so, I just was wondering, like, how was that for you? Like, just not your clients, but for yourself and for your siblings and for your mother, who had for something that doesn't seem like it was worth a 20-year sentence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have 9 siblings. I was 14 at the time. My father was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The youngest was 6. And overnight, my mom had to figure out how to raise 10 kids, dealing with 10 different attitudes and 10 different parts of life going on. And we all had to grow up at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what phase of life you were in. Everybody at that moment had to become an adult. And for us, we were, it's a stigma to not only be someone who is touched by the prosecution system, but being related or having a loved one that has been put through the prosecution system. And so you're really on your own. I mean, emotionally in society, you end up being, you have to sink or swim. And for us, through the grace of God, we still had the privilege of school. And that's what both of my parents pushed very hard for us, is that regardless of the circumstances, regardless how hard it was, they sacrificed to make sure we always had a roof over our head and food on the table. And the only business we had was excelling in school. And so through that, we all dug our heads in our books. And whatever was thrown at us, the bullying, the harassment, the stigma, all that other stuff, we set it aside and set our eyes on the goal of graduating. Bachelor's degree, graduate degrees, law degrees, medical degrees. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to accomplish the gamut here. But no matter what you accomplish, having this experience always keeps that moment very much alive and well in all of our hearts and in the back of all of our minds. And so when we deal with the system, when we represent our clients, like you're saying, Sister Amila, we see ourselves in them. We understand when I sit in a family's living room and the mother is in tears because she doesn't know how she's going to get her son out of jail, or the evidence is lies. I understand what that feels like. I understand when, children are being processed through school and they're struggling with bullying and harassment. We've been there. I see myself in my clients, and it takes someone like that to not sell out when they get to positions of power. Because regardless of whatever accolades you have, I still have brown skin. I wear hijab, and you don't see it because I'm sitting down, but I'm 6 feet. So I wasn't created to hide here, right? But that's not the point. The point's not to hide, is to face this adversity and stop it from happening and to protect against it. And so for me, that's where my passion comes from. And I think of my mom, I think of my dad, I think of my siblings and what we had to go through to get where we are. And it's unnecessary. And if I can stop other families from experiencing that, if I can protect our rights, if I can be a person that is going to do right by you, then alhamdulillah, I wouldn't change anything that has happened. It's difficult, but Allah is the best of planners, and we accept His decree. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge to rise up and do better for your brother and sister, to do better for your community, because this is our obligation, right? We're not here to possess things and then die with our possessions. We're here to make someone else's life easier. We're here to do right by each other and to protect the sanctity of life and the sanctity of our freedoms, because that is why we struggle so much in this country. So that's always at the forefront of what I do. This is why I don't see this as stressful. Yes, it takes a lot of my time, but I was doing this before as a civil rights attorney. The only problem I have is that it's the political side of things. And so you got to play this dirty side of politics, which is raising money. Other than that, my strength comes from you. My strength comes from these experiences. My strength comes from the thousands of living rooms that I've sat in with families trying to figure out how we're going to make things right and how I'm going to protect them, whether they were 6 years old or 50 years old. These are families, these are human beings, and it's hard. And that's what I keep at the forefront of everything I do. And when people tell me, it's impossible or blah, 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 I think about how impossible it probably seemed to my parents at the time. And now look where we are, alhamdulillah. And it's possible for society, and it's doable. And we don't have to make it hard for everybody. We just have to work together and protect each other and make it right, inshallah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your candidness. And one last thing, we're in California. For you, if you were to instruct us in California what to do to help you, what would that be?
I would absolutely love your support, both in donating, but also in informing our policies here. California and New York are huge states, but they're both prime grounds for reform. When you have the East Coast and the West Coast doing big reforms and big things like supporting your current district attorney, but also supporting your city council initiatives, we can balance off that plate. We don't need the federal government to make a difference for us, although we're fighting for it. We're doing that now on a local level. but you have to speak up as people. I mean, I really can't stress it enough that the power is in your hands as people, as voters, as taxpayers. When I tell you here in New York City, we saw extraordinary change in 3 weeks of protest that our legislators couldn't get done in over 5 years. That doesn't happen because all of a sudden they found time to do it. That happens because the fear was put back in them that they are accountable to people. And so if they want to hold an office, they're going to run for office, then you better have checked off these progressive platforms that people want to see happen. And if you can't do it, that's fine. Move aside for someone who can. And so I encourage you to speak up and speak up strongly and support those who are trying to do right and speak up as well, because the power is really in your hands. It always has been. We've just been convinced otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Really love the suggestion of Dr. Muhammad Nadeem and Brother Kamal Quraitim for raising $10,000. I think we should all couple like that and partner to raise funds and beat the clock and get there before anyone else does. So inshallah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his mercy, guidance, forgiveness, help, support, enlightenment, strength, power, love, mercy, all of it. I ask Allah for all of you who are attending and for our sister Tahanie. Inshallah, you find the strength and your passion grows stronger and stronger. And may Allah send your way people that will support you and help you and guide you when you need advice and guidance. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.